Madam President,
Senator from Florida.
I ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be vitiated.
We are not in a quorum call, Senator.
Great. I want to read here briefly from the law of the United States of America. This is the existing law. I'm not trying to pass a law today. And it says, Section 212A3B, subsection, I'm not going to read the whole numbers. The law of the United States, Immigration and Nationality Act, mandates that you are ineligible to enter into the United States if you endorse or espouse terrorist activity or persuade others to endorse or espouse terrorist activity or support a terrorist organization. What that basically means is, if you are a supporter of a terrorist group, or you encourage others to support the actions of a terrorist group, a designated terrorist group, the statute defines what that is, you're not supposed to get a visa. And so it's reasonable to conclude that if you're already in the country, understand what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about American citizens. I'm talking about someone who's a foreign national, and that person is in the United States on a visa, and that person is out there defending or encouraging others to defend and take the side of a terrorist organization, like, for example, Hamas, or maybe Hezbollah or somebody else. If they're not supposed to have a visa to come into the country, once they're already here, if they do that, they should lose that visa. That's applying existing law. And so what I'm going to come here on the floor and try to do today is pass something that I frankly thought was common sense, doesn't go any further than this, that basically urges, it's not even a new law, it's a resolution that basically says the Senate is asking the Biden administration, if they come across anyone who's here, a foreign national, on a visa, who supports Hamas, that person's visa should be canceled, and they should be removed from the country through the proceedings involving removal. That's what this resolution does. It obviously does things like condemn anti-Semitism and condemn the horrible attack from Hamas, but all it basically says is if you are a foreign national in the United States, you're here on a visa as a visitor, you're a visitor, and you support Hamas, or you encourage others to support Hamas, you should lose your visa and you should be gone. That's what I'm going to hope to be able to do here today. And so I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to consideration of Senate Resolution 413, which is at the desk, and further, that the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, and that the motion to reconsider be considered, made, and laid upon the table.
Is there an objection?
Madam President.
Senator from Vermont.
Reserving the right to object. I want to make it very clear that there's 100 members of the United States Senate who absolutely condemn the brutal attack by Hamas on innocent Israeli citizens, that absolutely condemn the kidnapping of Israeli citizens and some Americans, who absolutely condemn the vicious kill Jews philosophy of Hamas. And all of us have an opportunity, which I think all of us are going to take, to stand by Israel when it comes to going after Hamas. And I hope all of us are also going to do everything we can to encourage that every precaution that can be taken to protect innocent Palestinians be taken, because they too have been kidnapped by Hamas, who cynically use them as human shields. But I read the resolution of my colleague from Florida. This is not about enforcing existing law. This is about compromising a constitutional right that Americans have enjoyed since the inception of our country. It's the First Amendment. And it may be something that people in this body may object to, but when a person is in the United States, they enjoy the protections of our magnificent founding document, to be free from unlawful searches and seizures, and certainly to be able to say things that we may find repugnant. And there have been many things that have been said that are repugnant. But at the time of maximum stress, and we're in that right now, is when there is the maximum stress to compromise the right we've enjoyed of free speech protected by the First Amendment since the founding of our country. And we've had some recent experience with this. You know, after 9/11 and the trauma that our nation experienced with the loss of over 3,000 wonderful people in the Twin Towers at the Pentagon in Pennsylvania, there was a call to go after groups to compromise rights. And in hindsight, in those times when we did do the wrong thing because we harmed innocent people, in our anger, our justified anger, by the way, we don't want to do that again. So this resolution, however my colleague wants to characterize it, is about what happens in this country. And whether this may be something my colleague disagrees with, but when a person is in this country, they enjoy the benefits of our Constitution and the right of free speech. I stand for free speech. My preference is that we focus on doing the things that this United States Senate can do to help Israel go after Hamas, to help all of the innocent Palestinians who seek to live in peace have that opportunity to do so. So, Mr. President, I object, and I yield the floor.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President,
Senator from Florida.
if I may respond for a moment, I understand my colleague has to go. I know it's late and other things going on. I welcome him to stay, obviously, but there was a couple mentions about how I characterized the resolution. I'll just read you from the resolution. Resolved that the Senate calls on the President of the United States to enforce existing law to revoke visas and initiate deportation proceedings for any foreign national who has endorsed or espoused the terrorist activities of Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the people whose rocket yesterday hit a hospital in Gaza and killed innocent people, Hezbollah, or other foreign terrorist organizations, which is a term that's defined. The State Department issues a list of who those are, that have participated in terrorist attacks against Israel and the United States citizens before, on, or after October 7th, 2023. Yes, we have a First Amendment right in this country to free speech, but everyone acknowledges there are limits to it. For example, you do not have a First Amendment right to call people to overthrow the government of the United States. You don't have a First Amendment right to do that. You don't have a First Amendment right to incite people to violence. And there is no First Amendment right to a visa. I'm not talking about U.S. citizens. And by the way, to be abundantly clear, this is very specifically written to talk about people who have endorsed or espoused the terrorist activities of Hamas, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. This does not say people who support a two-state solution. This does not say people who are of Palestinian descent. It has nothing to do with any of that. People have every right to espouse those views. And I may disagree with them, but they have a right to do that. What no one has a right to do, especially a visitor, not an American, a visitor to the United States granted a visa for which there is no constitutional right, that we are going to allow visitors into the country. The law says they're not even allowed to be in. But now they're here. They got in because obviously nobody goes into their interview and says, I'm a Hamas supporter, by the way, in case you're wondering. So they let them in the country, or maybe they became a Hamas supporter while they were here. But they are here as visitors on a visa, espousing, defending, and supporting a terrorist organization that just committed a horrible slaughter, but has been doing it for a long time, not at this scale and scope like we saw in one day. This is not about First Amendment. This is people that are actively calling for the support of a terrorist organization that if they could would slaughter Americans. If they had the capability to conduct an attack like that in the United States, they would. There is no constitutional right to that. And there is no constitutional right to a visa to remain in this country. And so that's what I'm talking about. That's what all this is about. It goes on, obviously, to condemn the attack and all the other things, which I think would not be controversial. But that is specifically what this is about. The law is very clear. You're not allowed to create. It just makes all the sense in the world. Why would any country in the world say, we're going to give out visas to people who support terrorism? They wouldn't, and our law doesn't. But now that they're here, somehow they're immune to the application of the law. Now that visa is somehow a protected document. A visa is just like if we have to get a visa to go to another country. It's a country saying we're going to allow you in as a visitor for a temporary period of time. But there are all kinds of things that can get your visa canceled. All kinds of things that could get your visa canceled. Like if you're here to do a certain kind of job and you're not doing that job, your visa, you're in default of the visa. There are all kinds of things that, depending on the visa you're on, that can get a visa canceled. Shouldn't one of them be open, espousing support for terrorism? Shouldn't that be one of the criteria that we use? At the end of the day, it comes down to this. We can go back and forth. We can talk about all these other concepts. But I promise you that all across America, I don't even have to take a poll. If you went up to the average person and you asked them, let me ask you a question. If someone is a visitor to this country, say they're here on a tourist visa or a student visa, or here on a visa as a visiting professor, they're here on a visa, and that person is out there supporting and encouraging others to support a terrorist organization that hates America, hates our values, but more importantly, that carries out violence, that espouses violence as their primary tool for activism. If you went and told somebody, should we kick people out of this country who are not Americans, who are foreign nationals, who are here on temporary visas and are out there supporting terrorism inside our country, I guarantee you the overwhelming majority of Americans would say, absolutely. Absolutely we should. I've had Democratic colleagues come up to me and say that today. And all this resolution does is it doesn't even force the administration to do it. It just calls on them to do it. So I don't understand the objection. I don't understand the rationale behind the objection. I hope we can maybe vote on it one day. Maybe we can get a vote on this. That way everybody could be on the record. We shouldn't have foreign nationals in our country that support Hamas or Hezbollah or any of these other groups. And I specifically tailored the language of this resolution to stick to the law and nothing more. I do not believe anybody should be out there committing acts of violence against people because of their ethnic heritage, because of their religion. I tell this to people all the time. Do people realize, for example, that in the Israeli army right now there are Israeli Arabs who will be called to go into Gaza and fight in the war? There are Israeli Arabs who will fight for Israel because they're against terrorism. Do they realize that in the armed forces of the United States, there are men and women who are Muslims, followers of Islam, who have fought for the freedoms of this country? This is not a nation where your value as a person or your status as an American is determined by your religion or your ethnic background. I reject that categorically. We're heartbroken, for example, by a story that some deranged person knocks on the door and murders a little boy the other day, screaming something about Muslims. That's a crime. I'm glad he was arrested. He should go to jail. And anyone who does that should go to jail. That is the kind of violence that terrorists do. No one is defending or talking about anything like that. What I am saying is common sense. You're a visitor. You're not even an American. You're a foreign national. You're here because we gave you a visa to be here temporarily, and now you're out there defending and supporting Hamas, a terrorist organization. You need to go. That's what this resolution asks the administration to do. And I hope we can get a vote on the Senate, so at least everyone will know where everybody here stands. I yield the floor.